Hello. Welcome to Conscious Conversations in Parenting with me, Julie, and Natalie. And today we're here for episode 23, which is What You Resist Persists. I'm excited to get into this topic. Just a quick introduction. If we haven't met, I'm Angie. I'm the creator of Journey to Soul. Part of what I do is I empower women to find their power, to find to create the experiences that they want to have in this human experience. And part of doing that, a natural part of that is having conscious conversations, because that really helps us explore what's possible, because everything is possible, and what becomes possible. We're stuck in mental habits and patterns, and I believe that when we have these open conversations, we're able to see ways out of this patterning and these habits. And so, yeah, I'm passionate about doing that. And I'm a mom myself. I have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old. I'm married. I run a household here, and it's not always easy. So I find it's easier with other people. So Natalie, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you for that introduction, Angie. I'm part of a family unit here, and my husband, 2 kids, a couple of cats, lots of spiders in the house, but that's okay. They're cool too. But what I really love about these conversations and what comes more and more obvious to me every week when we meet up is this awakening journey, this conscious awakening, spiritual awakening journey. I find when we're in that family unit, families always mirror everything back to you, and my family's been such an important part of my awakening. They not only do they mirror things back to me, but there's also like the hidden lessons, right? Where um, like if you're brave enough to dive just like a little bit deeper into yourself under the surface, then you'll really see uh, that really great value that families have, uh, which is why I love that these topics often surround families and kind of the complex situations that we find ourselves in too.
Yeah, thank you, Julie.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Julie. If you don't know me, I am a mother of 2 boys, 11 and 13. I've always wanted to be a mother since I was born, I feel like. So I absolutely love having these conscious conversations with 2 other beautiful women. And me as a person, I am just somebody who desires to embody self-love, infinite and unconditional self-love, because I believe that's how we change the world. And if I can be an example of that and share love, not only does it feel good for others, but it feels good for myself. And I really feel like I can't go wrong. So that's who I am as a person. And I do my best to make choices that cause no harm to myself, others, or the environment. So that's really the core of who I am. And I love having these conversations because it absolutely does open up new perspectives and new avenues, because there's unlimited possibilities in parenting as well as everything else. So I love being here and having these conversations.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. There's unlimited possibilities in parenting, but we've not been taught that, have we? We've been taught that it's like this. You have to do this when you're
Do it this
parenting.
way.
Do it this way. It's not true, guys. Hate to burst that bubble, but it's not true. So what you resist persists. I love that saying, for one. I do love that saying because it is so true. Whatever you're in resistance to will keep showing up, because it's showing up to serve you. It's showing up to give you an opportunity. There's an invitation and an opportunity to do something different, to explore something different within you. There's always an opportunity to look within you, right? And so often what we resist is something that is actually needed for us to look at. That's why it's showing up. And I used an example today. It's really interesting that I used an example today in a Buddhist training, right, that I do in my membership. And I used the example about fear of a snake. And it's like, I'm afraid of a snake, and that's a thought. It's a story. Thoughts are like, they come from nowhere, they're birthed from nowhere, they're unceasing, they always are happening, and then they go away. They're not solid, they disappear, right? But yet we're so enslaved to our thoughts. And so I have this thought that I'm afraid of snakes. And you think about it, your whole entire life you resist snakes. You like, you don't like snakes. You think about all the energy you spend every time a snake is shown to you, or somebody talks about a snake, or you see a snake in the wild, like how much resistance there is and how much energy that takes up, right? And it's funny because snake just keeps showing up to share something, to share a message about shedding the old, you know what I mean? About transformation. And it's like snakes just trying to give you a message, but you keep resisting it. And guess what? If you stopped resisting it and you listened to the message and absorb that message, snake would probably disappear and you wouldn't see snake anymore. And all that energy that you've expended
Oh, it's so true.
will go away. That's kind of like how, so I thought it was funny that that was what came up in my train. And that's what I think, like when we're in resistance to things, we're not realizing, we're not recognizing that there's actually a beautiful opportunity for our growth in that thing you're resisting.
I love the way you describe that. That's so beautiful. You're so right. Not only does it have a message for us, it's there for our growth. And usually when we are able to accept the message and learn the message, we're able to move forward with more ease going forward. And the amount of energy we drain out of ourselves, you're so right. You think of like a reaction, you're having a trigger or a reaction to this over and over and over in your life. And like you said, once we're able to accept it and learn from it, it no longer appears to us in the same way. So we're not expending all that energy. So even if we are faced with it, it's not the same experience. It's a completely new experience. And that's where the ease comes in from learning the lesson. Yes. And as you ladies know, and I'm sure many people watching know, everything is a reflection of what's going on internally. So like you said, the animals, the insects, the plants, everything, they're just here to share a message with us. Like the Pleiadian books I read, Earth is like a living library. So the reactions that we're having to it is just something internal with us. And you remind me of being terrified of spiders forever. And the amount of energy I expended on being terrified of those spiders, they would practically haunt my dreams. I wouldn't be able to go to sleep at night if there was one in the room, or, all the energy and time that I spent. And after doing some exposure therapy myself, now I love spiders, and they've taught me so much. I love sitting with a spider. So it's such a different experience.
Yeah.
And I know you had, I think it was you, Angie, that mentioned that there's opportunity in resistance. Like in whatever we're resisting, there's an opportunity for growth. And often what we're resisting, it feels like a challenge to us. And something that, a lot of people look at a challenge like you have to defeat it. Like it's something negative, right?
Yes.
And like something you have to destroy or crush or
get
something.
rid of.
It's kind of like that masculine energy mentality. And the thing is, challenges are actually like it's a gift from life itself. And my mentor mentioned this just a few weeks ago, and it hit me hard. That challenges are actually they are a gift to us, so that we can continue expanding. Because imagine if you had no challenges, if you didn't resist anything, if everything was like peachy pink and rosy, well, what would you be doing? You wouldn't, there would be no growth, right? Because there would be nothing pushing you to go out of your comfort zone or to go within, right? Because especially with resistance, because often when we resist things in a family unit, it's something that we're resisting about maybe another person or our relationship with another person or our belief of what someone else is thinking, um, or someone's behaviors or habits. I, to me, at least, that's been my experience of kind of the biggest things that we resist, right? Um, because then we get upset with people, or we just internalize it. Often we internalize it, and then it builds and builds, and then it, all of a sudden you snap at someone. Um, Again, for no reason, but there is a reason, right? There's something within that you're resisting. Maybe it's, who knows, maybe it's like a certain behavior that they're displaying. And again, you got to dive deeper, right? Is it really that other person's behavior? Like, is it because they're never picking up the dishes off the table and putting them in the dishwasher, or is it because, are you actually resisting your anger towards that person, right? Maybe that unwarranted anger.
I just dealt with that. I just dealt with that
I
in
love
our
that
recording
example.
for last episode. And it's like I was angry. I was projecting anger at my husband, and I was realizing that it's actually an internal anger towards myself about something, right? And so
Yeah.
what I looked at was, what is it that I think I'm angry at him for? And I looked at, how am I possibly angry at myself for the same thing? And that's how I was able to transmute it to love. And I love that you said this, Natalie. Like, this was part of the teaching today, was this whole idea of getting rid of. This is what happens when we start diving in and we start getting curious about our resistance. When we start to become aware, like, oh, I'm in resistance to anger, let's say, right? Then you want to get rid of anger. This is where we go to the extreme. This is what humans do, right? Like, we go to the extreme and it's like, well, we need to get rid of anger. And it's like, the teaching was about, but can we actually just soften here and reframe it? Can we just soften and reframe? We don't need to get rid of it, because what if the very thing that you want to get rid of is the very thing that's going to set you free? Because that's where your
Yes.
freedom is. That's where your freedom is. And that's what the teaching was about, is like, you liberate by analyzing and examining within, though. We're so used to examining and analyzing everything outside of us, what they're doing and what they're doing, what this person's doing and how they're behaving. And we're analyzing everything outside of us. And there's always an opportunity in whatever we're expressing externally to actually go in and see what's being created inside, that's making you express in this way, right? That's causing you to express in this way. And that's what the teaching was about, is this is
That's such
where
a
your freedom is.
that's such a great point, because I find a lot of times when I or other people are judging and analyzing what everyone else is doing, it's just a deflection from analyzing ourselves and what we're doing, because we feel uncomfortable with that, right? We're resisting it. We're resisting going within and seeing what's uncomfortable with us. Like Natalie said, that's where the growth comes. That's where we feel uncomfortable enough to make a difference. And sometimes it takes just a little bit of discomfort, and sometimes it takes a freaking heck of a lot of discomfort before we decide to make some changes.
Yes.
And with me, resisting for so many years built up this pressure inside of me that would turn into anger and rage, right? And then I would explode on other people. I remember Dr. Phil saying one time, like, your psychological skin is burned. So any little thing that touches you, it's like, oh. So you're having this reaction all the time, but it's all this pressure built up that we're resisting feeling the uncomfortable feelings, the triggers, so to speak. That's where our growth happens, when we become present in those moments and choose a different action. But we have to go in and we have to analyze ourselves, see what we're doing, be okay with those uncomfortable feelings, allow them to move through our body, you know, there's a process that goes with it, and it's a process that we weren't taught growing up. You know, mental and emotional health is fairly new, in terms of the human population of people discussing these things, you know, as other challenges for humans have been healed over generations. We often talk about generational trauma, but there's also generational healing that occurs, right? So as these healings occur, we have new challenges, new experiences to face. And when we suppress those, they'll keep coming and persisting over and over and over. So it's definitely about finding a way to process our feelings and emotions and analyzing ourselves, instead of pointing the finger outside and analyzing everyone and anything outside of ourselves.
And that's the invitation.
That's what brings us internal peace. I just need to say that's what brings us internal peace as well. You know, we're all seeking that internal peace where we lay down at night and we feel grateful and joyful, and we wake up and we're excited for the day. And it all is within, and it's learning how to process our emotions, really, is a great way to do that, like I discussed. So it brings the internal peace and helps us to also create the reality that we desire, because as we know, we're creating our reality. So
and that's why this is why I'm so passionate about teaching compassion. This is why I love the Buddhist teachings, because we need the compassion for ourselves as we examine and analyze. This is why we don't want to examine and analyze within, because it's uncomfortable and we judge ourselves when we examine. And so we need compassion. We need compassion to see that the humanness of us, you know, and the mind is not something to get rid of. The ego is not something to get rid of. It's something to relate to understand, because all humans have it, you know? And so it's really important to develop, I believe, or cultivate a practice of self-compassion. If you're gonna go into the resistance. But you're right,
because
there's peace.
like you said, it's right. And it's learning to love all parts of ourselves. So, you know, stopping judging ourselves and loving ourselves and having that compassion, like you said, for ourselves will help make those experiences much easier and, in my experience, much shorter. Right? Because when we start to judge ourselves and insult ourselves, you know, it just brings us to this downward, low vibrational spiral that we can get stuck in. But when we can, no matter how low we feel and we are, if we can find some compassion and from some love for ourselves, even if it's for 30 seconds or a minute a day, and slowly start to build that, we can start to raise our vibration and come out of that darkness and come more into the light, and learn what changes need to be made. That's discovering what our heart and soul desires, right? And when we do that, we definitely can face challenges with much more ease and for shorter periods of time. And then eventually they become fewer and further between as well. Because when we are faced with these challenges, then we have skills and tools and ability to move through them with love and compassion. And as I said, it can start with just taking, yes. And it can start with taking 30 seconds to a minute a day to just do something loving for ourselves. And we build on that.
Natalie, what do you do? I'm curious, just what do you do when you notice you're in resistance to something in your household?
So I always check in, check into my heart first. And when I mean heart, guys, like I literally mean, okay, well, maybe not like the organ itself, but like right where the organ is, there's there's a huge energy center there. And that's really where we connect with our higher self and our guides and everything. It's kind of like a phone, right? You go in and when you pick it up, if you're still in the 90s, you pick up the receiver. But yeah, that's
Like
what
this,
I do.
not like this.
Resistance, yeah. Whenever I feel resistance, I mean, I usually always feel it like I'll tense up somewhere,
Yeah.
right? Like in my shoulders, or like I'll feel it like in the
Body.
bottom of my stomach. So then that's always a sign to me, okay. So I go into my heart, I go within, and I'm like, okay, what? Because resistance really is externally judging, right? So it's like, okay, this is what judging feels like in this body, right? Like this is what judging, I don't know, my son feels like. But then can I just take a moment and be honest with myself and be like, okay, like what? There must be some kind of self-judgment within me, right? So a good example is yesterday at like 8:30 at night, he wanted to build some Legos, and I'm just like thinking, dude, my bedtime's like 9 p.m. Like, what are you talking about building Legos? But I'm like, okay, like, but then I felt resistance as we were enjoying ourselves, we were having a good time and everything. And but then there was resistance in the and it showed up in impatience, right? I was just like, bloody hell, like, can I just put these pieces together, right? What was the thought that came in? And then I felt tense, and then I'm like, okay, I'm feeling resistance. I'm losing. It feels, like again, the mind's just trying to trick you guys. It feels like I'm being impatient, but I get to actually choose if I want to lash out at him or if I want to sigh out loud, or I can also choose to just kind of let it go, right? um and then I did a lot of breath work. Like, I find breath work is really helps me a lot. Especially there's a type of like yoga breathing, like ocean breath, where it's kind of so what it is, if people don't know, like when you're like fogging up a mirror or something like that, how you kind of close up your throat or whatever. So you hold your throat like that, like you're fogging up a mirror, and then you're breathing in through your nose. So it just creates like a slight vibration or tightening in your throat. And then that just, to me, that helps because it's a physical sensation. And I'm also following my breath. And you can do it anywhere, right? You can do it while you're driving. You can do it while you're sitting at the dining room table. Try not to fall asleep on Legos. But then it just centers me, right? And it brings you again. So the whole, I guess, like my short long answer is, again, I go within, what is this actually reflecting? Because again, if I'm judging someone or if I'm impatient with someone, it means that I'm impatient with myself, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was actually being impatient with myself because I was feeling that impatient. Like, I was getting irritated at myself because I was getting irritated at my son. Like, it's always like that, right? It's kind of a mind trip. And then, like, what can help me right now, right? Sometimes I can just like blank my mind out, but other times I need like that extra little step of, okay, can I get to like blanking my mind out? So again, like following my breath, right? And then it dissolves it for that moment. And you know what? It popped back up like 10 times. So I kept doing it.
Yeah, you have to choose and
And
choose
then
and
it kind of
choose
came to the
again.
conclusion, yeah,
Yeah.
keep choosing. So then I think we were there for maybe 30, 40 minutes. And then we kind of hit a moment where we both agreed to pack it up and build the Lego flower another day. So yeah.
See, and I see in that example, what a beautiful example. Thank you, Natalie. That was really great. And I see, do you see all the suffering that can be created in that situation when in the end he packs up the Lego and doesn't do it forever anyway? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So if you could
yeah.
just be present through it, such a great example.
Yeah, I love
Mm.
that example. You were so aware and choosing. And as Angie said, choosing and choosing again. Sometimes, oftentimes that's what we need to do when we're breaking old habits, right? Well, that's exactly what we need to do. We need to choose over and over again to create a new dynamic, make a new experience. And in the end,
the words fearlessness and tenacity come to mind. Like you have to be willing to, fearless in going in and choosing a different thing and doing it again and again and again and again.
Yes. And before we finish, this keeps coming into my mind. So Natalie had made an example about resisting and putting the dishes away and doing it. I don't know exactly how you said, but getting frustrated, right? When you're putting the dishes away and so on and so forth. And that experience for me, going within, I discovered I was resisting asking for help. And it's funny because I was resisting asking for help because I was afraid to blow up or be rude and cause an issue, right? But when I became aware of that, I was able to then turn it around and do it lovingly and kindly, and then get the help that I needed. But I could resist for, let's say, a week asking for help. And a lot of the times, it's because of the way I would approach it, right? It would cause a challenge. It would be like, could you just pick this up? Or, why do I always see this here? Rather than saying, I would appreciate some help. I'm doing a lot of stuff. And I don't appreciate seeing your things here all the time. I'd like you to pick them up for me. And it makes such a huge difference and alleviates that frustration that I had been resisting for so long because I was scared of what would come of it. But when we become conscious of these feelings, we have the power to make different choices and completely change the dynamic.
I love that. I laugh because you said it, like we're worried about how we're going to come across if we ask for help, but then in the end we do it for a week all angry like and snappy at everyone that we end up coming across really like resentful. We come across negatively anyway. So isn't it funny?
Exactly. Even if we don't say something, that energy is being put out there and being expended by us, all that energy being expended by us as well. And we're putting it all out there. So it is pretty funny. Yeah. So
sorry, guys.
I think the more we can process and take time to deal with the things that are challenging us and triggering us, the more skills we learn, the more decompressed we become, the more freer we feel, the more relaxed we feel, knowing that we're not always going to feel joyful and happy, but we learn skills how to deal with those challenging feelings. And eventually we start dealing with them almost instantaneously. So we're not compressing and hiding away all these things that are making us uncomfortable. Angie and I were just talking about this, in the family dynamic with Steve and I. We've been together for 21 years. And, learning how to communicate in a healthy way has been an ongoing experience. And I was talking about how now in a situation, if something's happening that I'm uncomfortable with or I don't like, I can say something about it in the moment and it de-escalates the situation. Whereas before, with lack of communication, it would escalate the situation. So I wouldn't want to say anything. I would be quiet and then I would push it down and it would come out as explosions. It's taken years of learning how to communicate in a healthy way and a loving way with one another. And it comes down to learning how to communicate with ourselves in a healthy and loving way as well, right? It starts internally, because if I can't even speak lovingly and kindly to and about myself, I have challenges doing that with other people as well. So
Yeah. So I figure I'm just gonna end the call with the teaching. I think it's funny how aligned this is with the teaching that I taught this morning. So I'm gonna give you the same invitation, everyone. So the slogan that I was teaching on is liberate yourself by examining and analyzing within, right? That's how you free yourself. That's how you stop the resistance and you free yourself by going within. But what the invitation to practice is notice. Notice what leads to more freedom or alleviates suffering, and notice what leads to more suffering. Right? Start to analyze this after once you've been hearing what we're saying, and just start to notice. But what something Natalie said was so important, because this is one of the invitations, is to bring to mind something that gets you riled up. Not big. Humans tend to be like, take the most challenging thing that they have so that they can self-sabotage themselves, right? And be like, oh, I can't do it. It doesn't work. Don't take the biggest thing. Take a minor annoyance, you know what I mean, in your household. Bring it to mind, something that gets a little bit of a rise out of you, and be with it. Be present with it. Just notice. Notice the heightening of emotion. Notice your body. How does your body react to the thought of it? Really pay attention. I love that you brought it there, Natalie, because that's so important, right? Examine it. This is how you examine and analyze within. You be with it. You notice emotion. You notice how it feels in the body. You notice any thoughts that pop up as you're with it. And maybe do the breath. I love this breath. I wrote it down because I love this breath you're talking about, ocean breath. Very cool. I look forward to trying that. And just be with it. And can you soften in it as you notice it? Just soften. Allow yourself to soften with that breath. That's my invitation to you. And then you're well on your way.
Beautiful invitation.
You're well on your way to looking at resistance. Did you guys have any other?
That's a perfect way to end the video.
Yeah. Thank you.
I do not. I love that. I think that's such a perfect example of how to start analyzing ourselves and feeling what's going on and choosing to do something loving, like just take some deep breaths and relax our body, but just being present with those feelings so we can start to learn from them.
Yeah, and practicing it by bringing it up in your mind. You don't have to have the real life situation in front of you. Right. This is how we can do it on our own before we're in it. And we're practicing it.
Right. And get practice some skills before we're right in it, right? That's a great way to practice the skills before we're, right in the middle of something.
Yeah.
Yeah, for like a minute, like Julie was saying during the call, right? Like this is a great invitation that Angie gave us, guys. Just do it for a minute a day.
Yeah.
Right?
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Anyway, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you, Natalie and Julie, for just loving these conversations like I do. And we'll see you at the next episode.
I sure do.
Take care.
Yes. Bye for now.